So, I don't know exactly what this is. I guess that it's kind of about being out of ideas, right? People say that to you when you're in the decline. When you had a YouTube channel that used to get more views than it currently does, you hear certain things. One of the things you hear is, you're out of ideas. I don't really feel like that's true, but I feel like I'm maybe out of ideas for YouTube videos, in a way. Because I have ideas, but they don't really jive necessarily with what this platform is, or what my budget constraints are, or what my mentality is at this point. Like, I don't really know how necessarily to express certain things that I feel within the confines
of this YouTube system.
Another thing you hear, I guess, is that
you are irrelevant.
And I guess that's supposed to be sort of a deflating comment. You know, you, as in I, say something. Someone who doesn't like what I have to say turns it back on me and says, well, you are no longer relevant. I don't have to listen to you. No one cares what you have to say because you are not relevant anymore. And I just kind of think that's a silly thing because the first time I ever uploaded a video on YouTube,
spouting my opinion off,
it wasn't because I was filled with this overwhelming sense of relevancy. I had no subscribers then. I had no idea where any of this was going. I didn't know if I was going to upload, you know, 2 videos to it, or 200, or 2,000, or 2 million, or whatever. All I knew is, hey, there's this new platform. I'm gonna go be an opinionated jackass on it, because that's basically what the essence of my motivation is and always has been. I am a loudmouth, opinionated jackass who wants to
just spew his
thoughts and feelings into the world. When I was younger, I used to want to do that through art. Used to want to be a writer. Used to want to make music. Used to want to make movies. And instead, this. Instead, look into camera, spew verbal diarrhea at some sort of nebulous person that's out there in the void, maybe being communicated with, maybe. They're hearing what I'm saying, maybe
they're understanding it. Maybe they're understanding it differently than how I'm conveying it.
Or maybe they're understanding it better than, you know, better than I am, you know? Maybe I am speaking volumes to them with every sentence, or maybe it's just so remedial and pathetic to their minds that they can't even bother to pay attention to it, or maybe their interpretation of what I'm saying is so far off and far and away from what I'm actually trying to get at that, you know, I might as well not even be speaking as far as they're concerned, because they're perceiving something so radically different than what I'm trying to convey that it's like a meaningless and futile exercise for me. But then sometimes maybe that the thing that I say that they misinterpret it to my advantage, and they think it's something more brilliant and insightful than it actually is. And then I get credit for, oh, well, actually, I think what TJ was trying to say there. Oh, yeah, that is what I'm trying to say. That sounds clever. Of course, yes, that's what I meant. A lot of little weird interactions that go on out there. There's no point to this. This isn't gonna
come back around and make sense. This is literally just
a ramble. That's all this is. It's gonna kind of chug along. I used to do this a lot back in the old days of YouTube, just to put on the camera and go. It was a lot more freeform back then. There wasn't as much of a filter. There wasn't, you know, because it was just like you could say whatever you want.
Say whatever you want. Say whatever you want. Say whatever you want. Say whatever you want. Say whatever you want.
And it's like, well, you can say whatever you want except for this. Don't say that. Or that. Or that, 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 or that. Don't say that. And if you're going to say this, you got to say it in this way. And if you're going to say this, you better use a metaphor. And if you're going to say this, you better let people know you're not serious. You know? So it's like the age of unrestricted rant. Just bare your soul to people. That's done. It's done for me anyway. Can't do it anymore. Can't just bare your soul out there. Because, you know, too many restrictions. Too many people trying to find something somewhere that they can be
upset about. Because they don't want to be upset about the real problems of the world because they feel powerless.
They are powerless, you know? But the one place where we do have power is in beating up each other, right? Throwing out insults and aspersions against one another. Like, oh, you're a piece of shit. Oh, you think I'm a piece of shit? You should see this piece of shit. Oh, you think that's a piece of shit? I got the biggest piece of shit of all. Look at this piece of shit. Can you believe what this piece of shit did? Oh, that piece of shit is nothing compared to this big piece of shit. Look at this mega piece of shit. Wow, 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 look at us. Look at us, fucking, oh, we're on turd search. Who can find the biggest piece of shit? You know? It's like, oh, look at that left-wing piece of shit. Oh, that left-wing piece of shit is not so bad. Look at this
right-wing piece of shit. That's the piece of shit. Oh, well, you know, it's not like that centrist piece of shit. It's like, oh, everyone's a piece of shit. Everyone's a piece of shit. Everyone's a piece of shit. Then it's like, oh, well, what about
these kids starving? What about these people locked up in detention centers at the border that we still haven't solved? Oh, well, you know, ooh.
Bitched about it on Twitter, I did my part, you know? It's like, oh, okay, well, jeez.
Hey, man, you know, I told off some people about that. I said, hey, Biden administration, you said there'd be no more kids in cages, but there are. You lied to us. And, you know, so I held him to account, you know? I held him to account. I said my piece to him. Okay, you said your piece. Sure, they were very affected by it. One of the only times anyone ever insulted me in a way that actually hurt me was, and it totally flew under the radar for everybody. It's the strangest thing, you know? All these times, oh, you're irrelevant, you're a piece of shit, you stuff banana up your ass, whatever, all the crap. Just like, whatever, I don't care. I don't need to be relevant. Because see, I have a giant ego, right? And when I first started doing this YouTube stuff, it was like that ego was in search of validation. But I'm not in search of validation anymore. And it's going to sound like the most edgy reason to not need the validation anymore, but the reality is, like, I just don't care about what people think anymore. And I don't mean that in a, like, I'm so cool or whatever the hell, like, I don't even care what other people think. Like, I'm not saying it in that way. I'm literally just saying, like,
I can't bring myself to care anymore.
Can't bring myself to care. It's like I used to, in high school, I used to walk the halls and, like, imagine myself as, like,
a superior being, you know?
Like, I'm a vampire, or I'm an extraterrestrial, or I'm a cyborg. I would escape into these outsider power fantasies. I guess they would call it like a Sigma male power fantasy at this point. I didn't dream
of belonging. I dreamed of being like badass, lone wolf kind of character, you know? And if anyone messed with me, I'd just kill him, you know?
I'd have that mentality of, like, the violent fantasy, like, what if I just kick a bunch of people's asses or whatever, you know? And now I don't have those fantasies anymore because it's like I don't even care enough about other people. There's no meaning to it. There's no oomph to it because it's just like they're just meat sacks running around out there. They're like not sentient to me. Most of them. And the ones that are, I wouldn't want to hurt them. So I don't know, there's no taboo there anymore. There's just like my extraordinary apathy towards the fellow members of my species, right? It's been replaced by that. And that apathy has affected so many things across the spectrum. One of the things it's affected is my ability to really feel like the sting of an insult. Another thing it's affected is just like my need for validation.
Because it's like my ego is self-sustaining at this point. It doesn't need you anymore.
But one of the things that actually did sting, one of the things that actually reached into my guts and pulled something out, and looked at it and deemed it, reprehensible and threw it in the garbage, was that guy, that animator, Cy10 Atheist. Remember him? He did the Brett Keane the Opera. Remember that? We played that on Drunken Peasants back in the day. Here in my dingy room, with my pajamas on, adding more shit to my wish list on Amazon. You know? That one? He did a few cartoons that featured me, not as a voice actor or anything, but just featured me as a character to, like, lampoon. And the shtick that he chose for me was the amazing non-entity. And it was just like me, but I totally like vacant face, just like, duh. Just like a void of nothing. Just like this wall of a face, just like, duh, want, eat, want, stick things up butt. I think he had me sticking Jacqueline Glenn up my ass with this vacant, just like, duh, look on my face. And, I was thinking about that, the non-entity thing. It's like, ooh, that really gets to, like, the core of some of my fears, Some of my fears about myself. Because I strive to find that sort of, like, bedrock, sort of, like, core of your being kind of thing, like, somewhere in there is that core from which everything else springs, right? That's how we are instructed, at least, to think about ourselves, I think, in popular culture and, religious literature and political ideology and everything else. There's always this lens of, like, what are you really? When it comes right down to it, what's the real deep down truth of who you are? And, the older I get, the more I strive to kind of understand that. And the more it just seems like, doesn't really seem to be there. Just like, kind of absent. Kind of not really a thing. And, I don't know. I feel like it makes me a little bit like a shapeshifter. Not physically, of course. I can't actually transform my shape. But, in terms of, like, you ask who I really am, it's like,
I'm whoever I need to be.
Like, what's the need of the moment? What TJ needs to exist in this environment? But then I really want to ask, like, well, I don't know. There's like a certain sort of authenticity, though, that can only come from, wow, this is the real deal. This is someone who's, like, letting you see their deep down vulnerability, And I kind of started thinking, like, about that episode of The Simpsons where Bart sells his soul to Milhouse, and then at the end, Lisa tells him something like, some philosophers think you're not born with a soul, it's something you have to, like, earn through hardship and, life experience or whatever. And then I was like, well, maybe it's the core is like that, you know? Maybe it's something that you can only get to when you delve down into that more honest place and tell, like, the deeper truths about yourself and sort of, you know, open up and just, like, really espouse the worldview you actually hold and all that stuff. But the only thing I can really tell you is that I don't know. You know? 36 years into my existence, I really don't know what
I am, what I believe, what I stand for.
I have some very general ideas about how society should be organized, or how people should be taken care of, and where rights begin and end, and things of that nature. But I don't really know myself all that well. And the more I try to know myself and just can't connect, the more it feels like self is something that I have to create, not something that I can just expect to be imbued with. And maybe the way that I feel inside is because I haven't sought out enough experiences. I've been too cautious in life. I haven't taken the big chances or big risks that I should have taken, or maybe I haven't devoted myself to the right creative pursuits. You know, instead of telling stories and creating art, I put a lot of my creativity into just hopping in front of this camera or a dozen others like it and just speaking and speaking and speaking. And, you know, hoping that what I'm putting out there is reaching somebody that can find something in it. You know, not even really knowing who I'm speaking to, just talking without regard for who it's reaching, just
like a distress signal being sent into the blackness of space.
You know, I wanna paint more, I wanna draw more, I want to write my novel. I hope to one day make a movie, and I hope that in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, 30 years' time, if I'm still around, then if someone asks me, like, who I am deep down inside, I have some kind of answer. But, right now I don't.
I guess that's it. Let me know what you think.